Oh, so there's.
All right, well, according to this, it's 5 o'clock. We get this started. Today we got a joint meeting of Public Works and Campus Reconfiguration. I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
McPhee. Here. Balti.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Kirk. Here. Williamson.
Here.
Bowie.
Here.
Squires. So then I'll need the campus configuration.
Okay, I'll call this meeting to order for the Richland County Campus Reconfiguration Committee on this date of 2/1/2026 at 5 p.m. We have a roll call for that, please.
Carol. Here. Hanover. Here. Engel. Here. Harry. Here. Kirk. Here. Frank. Williamson.
Here.
In the meeting, who's gonna run point on this?
Mark.
Mark's gonna run it, yes. All right, well, we're going then. Verification of open meetings law. Approval of 18-point agenda. Second that. Larry already second, so Shirley and then Larry, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right, public comment. Do you have any public comment? Okay,
Can we turn that off so we can hear better?
sure, but I don't know how to do that now.
Well, we have Randy here.
It's the two switches right behind you.
Josh
Josh.
is the one that's gonna run.
No. Oh, you want that one off over there?
This one's so loud.
Oh, the two, yeah, leave that one on, because that's the air over there. Yep,
That's
turn them to your right, turn them to your right.
Your rear seat. Yep. Perfect. All right, any other public comment? Let's see, all right. Reports. Administrators update.
All right, so we had our campus rummage sale and our total revenue from the rummage sale was $1,962.85. After the rummage sale, we had many more schools reach out and they were provided the opportunity to walk through the buildings. At this point in time, everyone is done from going into the buildings. The demo project will be starting next week, and so the buildings will be turned over to the company. We have removed the capstone and we will be looking for guidance on where that should go. Because that has, right? The plaque, yep, of what we want to do with that. And then SEH has provided their final report and it is contained in the packet. And then the last thing I want to share is I did attempt to file our first payment on the grant and it was denied as we need to turn in the 2025 audit first. So once our 2025 audit is turned in, then we can make our first request for payment.
All right. Any questions for the administrator?
Question. Was just wondering the other night when I was driving out past the campus, would it be feasible to talk to like Ben Kelch or somebody and maybe just have a video walkthrough of the buildings so people can see what they look like before they come down? I don't know, if he'd be available to do it, or if I got time now. Walk through, I could run a video camera and just preserve a look so people who haven't had a chance to be out there could just see what everything's condition is before they start tearing things down.
I was wondering if American Science Surplus had decided whether to come out and get some more stuff out of the science building.
I don't know if there's much science stuff left out there. I never reached out to them, but we had quite a few schools coming out since that time and took a lot more information, so.
Department head update.
Okay, I only got just a couple things. Our second unit here at the courthouse is now up and running. Thermodynamics has sent the motor that was bad when it was delivered. They sent it to Madison, had it refurbished. and redone. They're still ordering. The brand new one is still on its way, or who knows where. But we will have a backup motor now. Once the new one gets here, they'll put the new one in, then we'll use the one that they refurbished for a backup. So, both units are now currently running. May not be able to tell in here, but it is. We were out to the library today and Bob Franks and I had a discussion a while back about removing ceiling tiles. And I priced them. It was more expensive to purchase them. So we went to the library today and we removed 360 ceiling tiles to use in this building here. We're still gonna go back out tomorrow and we're gonna try to remove another probably 200 or 300 to use in this building here, because we have a lot of old ratty stain tiles throughout the building, so that is another project we're gonna be working on for the next, who knows how long. But we're gonna try to get that done before abatement starts next week, so get them out of the library, and then we'll go to science building and so on and so forth and get those out too, so. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Josh?
Not much news since last one. We did the repair to the parking lot at Ash Creek, so that has been completed as of late last week. So far, the state has moved on to their annual bridge sealing, where they're spraying that sealer all over the decks of the bridges, and they do that every year in spring. County is mowing in full force, so all of our tractors are out and about. And then we're doing a little bit of guardrail and bridge spraying. That's just getting rid of the tall weeds around the guardrail. And then we just have a couple spare guys and they're going around doing some culvert repair and patchwork. Mr. Chair.
Questions for Josh? All right, number 7, discussion possible action on the vision for the campus property related to housing.
So this is twofold. At the last campus reconfiguration meeting, there was asked to have this on the agenda for each of the board members to be able to talk about what they want to see happen out at the campus property related to housing. And then we have had some discussions with the city. So I asked the city to be here and talk about their vision also. So if we could start with the board members and talk about what their vision is for campus property.
Looking at me.
I am looking at
All
you, Mr. Chair.
I'll admit, Jason, I was kind of had reservations with your proposal. Not the proposal itself. In dealing with SEH, I always had the hope that we could find one developer for the entire property. Now, to be clear, SEH never guaranteed they would find a single investor. But I was still hoping for that. And so when you went through the process then with SEH and SEH came to us and said, this would probably be a good idea. That thought went completely away. I'm 100% behind what we're going to try and do with the city. And that was the only reason that I was worried that if we sold 17 acres, it would scare away a potential investor that would want the whole thing. And that's not going to happen now. That knight in shining armor is not going to come right over that hill. So I am fully endorsing whatever the city wants to do out there. I don't think we should do any limitations on our end other than maybe residential housing for the 17 acres. I think as far as the housing market goes, I've heard people say, well, we don't want all these $450,000 homes out there. I don't think that's going to happen because the job market in Richland County, at least, kind of runs the housing market. There's just not a lot of jobs in Richland County that would support a $450,000. I do have a couple questions for you. The infrastructure that you're putting into the property, will that be designed just for the 17 acres or will there be other houses that can tap into that infrastructure?
I don't know if it makes more sense for us to kind of go over the map and those kind of that vision, and maybe then that can help answer your questions as well as maybe anybody else that does that.
It will definitely, I think we'll definitely get to the answer to that. I'd qualify and say that like the map that's in, I think it's in the packet, is that right, Trish, or you're just gonna
No,
throw it
I'll
up?
try to share it.
Which is basically, it's my version of what SEH had done. And in discussion with Trish and Josh after the last campus reconfig meeting where you said you guys need to work together and get talking, I think that was the directive. We had some great conversations and we think they really opened up. And so the question then becomes, should we be looking this at on a broader scale? In other words, it's pretty complicated, right? As you're all learning to redevelop something of that nature with that many acres on a, you know, on an access controlled highway with bridges and wetland and all of those things. But the recent conversations we've had with Trish and Josh led us to believe, well, like maybe we should be really looking at this broader. And then we narrow the scope once we figure out if we're going to be restricted by DOT rules, by wetland rules, any other site condition we could figure out, you know, that we could learn about in the process, by HUD grant rules that we're working with on the 2.5 million that the city has to use. So that would be my kind of intro to this map. Is there? All right.
Not been granted permission to share my screen. Should just be able to share.
So let's support that, idea of going broader first, especially to see the access routes for fire in et cetera. I also think that some of the land, I'm not sure if it's this project or it's a separate one, or how is that? But I think it's low and moderate income housing would be important to have a piece on this public parcel. Which is why Craig, I think, is here in the back. So Craig, at any point, I would welcome your thoughts on that as well. Because I know you're not in the VHS report, but you should. So.
Sure. If I could, if I may, NHS is working right now on housing development projects in other communities in Southwest Wisconsin. We have one that we're doing in Lancaster, Wisconsin, one in Cuba City, one in Dodgeville. And with those, one of them involves infrastructure build out, and the other two are not. They're site ready. So we've become a dealer for modular homes. And in doing so, we can achieve a pretty deep discount on some of those modulars. And then we're also establishing a model so that we can market those ourselves. Long and short of it is very, very challenging to build a home in anywhere in Southwest Wisconsin for less than $300,000. And at that price point, someone at the median income, it would take about 34% of their home, which is above the affordability ratio that we try to achieve of less than 30%. So those are some methods, some ways where you can achieve workforce housing that we've been putting into practice in other communities. I did notice in here that you're interested in partnership with private developments. Is that correct? The city, in the description, private developers, it says. If we were to be involved, if NHS were to be involved, we would want it to be a partnership. And by that, in most, how we're structuring these is that we're not purchasing the lots until we sell them. And then we've got a shared interest in the marketability and the marketing of them. And then we can, for example, in Lancaster, you know, we're building to 9 housing development project, and we have 3 workers from the public sector that are ready to move in. Well, we don't have them built yet, but they're on the way. But that happened because it's a partnership with Wisconsin, Southwest Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, City of Lancaster, NHS, Southwest CAP. We're all working on it together. We're all sharing that marketing burden. And at that point, you know, so that's the goal. That's where NHS is at right now. Looking at 3-bedroom homes with or without a garage, a variation, with or without a basement, some configurations. So that's where I guess that's the interest from NHS in this project, to see those, the word workforce housing gets thrown around a little bit. It has to be affordable for the median income of a target market that we're trying to house. So that's our strategy, and how we've been.
So again, I'm not suggesting that that be part of your proposal if you have something different in mind, but just the land itself should have a component of that. I think the first step is a Department of Transportation analysis.
Yeah, there's a number of first steps in order, even for us to fully access the grant funds. So right now, the funds have been awarded, but we have to create project-specific, basically implementation cost plans. So before we can do that, we need to have some preliminary discussion here and some agreement on, what's going to be acceptable and what's not. That allows us then to move through a process of environmental, they do kind of a high-level environmental review to access the grant funds. Then we need, I was just talking to an engineer this week about it. He says, yeah, you're going to want to get to a wetland delineation right away by the DNR, because that's going to affect how close we can get to different places. And if we have to establish another access point, that'll be affected by wetland delineation. We then get to the place where we're looking for a desk review, and Josh and I have been talking about that with, he's got a good DOT contact. I've got one. We're kind of checking them against each other to make sure we're getting the straight answer. And so with the DOT, we have a kind of a review process of what we're looking to do. And I've been told by our engineers and by my DOT contact, I think you got the same thing, Josh, from your DOT contacts, that we're going to need at minimum traffic impact analysis. It's called an abbreviated one, which is it's not as much data. I've even been told that they're probably going to require that that's done when school is in, and so there are a lot of hurdles to jump over to make sure that the DOT then is going to come back and say, yeah, we think with the general vision that you have here, and this is a general vision. This is specific enough for a general vision for them. Projects, 500 to 800 people living in the area, projects maybe future light commercial or some type of governmental building. They project traffic patterns off that. They look at the current road accesses in and out, right-hand turns. Are there any accidents in the area? Hive Drive does complicate it. That's part of what we've been working on. This grant with actually the high schools improving Hive Drive. They look at all of that in totality and say, and sometimes sometimes they can put their foot down, can't they, Josh?
Yep.
So we'd like to have a discussion with them about, we're proposing Hive Drive will be a primary access, and then we know that we have to have another access. It would be good if it could be the bridge that's currently there, but there is a chance that they'll say it's too close, too close in proximity, and you're going to be driving too much traffic. You need another one right where like West Side Drive is currently. So there's a whole bunch of discovery that we have to go through in order then to figure out what actual costs will be for those different proposals that they may have. And at that point, the county and the city may say, hey, they want a bridge at West Side. We don't have the money to do the bridge at West Side. Or collectively, the county and the city partner and do a bridge at West Side. But we could improve Hive Drive in conjunction with the school, and then that would be that upper access from the northeast portion of the property. So I'm talking a lot of like if-thens right now, right? So we've talked about an access being up here, and that's where we initially proposed kind of the housing development. But as we've talked with Trish and Josh, we've really said, well, look, we should be considering the totality of the property. The vision that the county has, the willingness to participate that the city has, what are they have? So how do we make our goals align? And then figure out, does it make sense to do this first? Or because of a county goal, you know, we choose to develop this side first and it changes so that we prepared, let's say, a space for a governmental building and then moved into transitional housing or more apartment housing. You know, versus this side would be more of this, we projected more of a single family market rate housing. In order to get to that decision, we've got to find out what our base costs are going to be for those plans. We have an idea of what the cost is here, but if there's greater willingness by the county and city to partner together to advance things quicker, faster, or on a more beneficial scale to all of our constituents, then we might say, no, we think it's over here, you know, so, but we've really got to do a lot of work to get some pretty good estimated costs to construct of each of these different phases. And
Jason, if I may.
Yeah.
So I think the roundabout conversation piece is that more of a clear direction has to be decided before we can actually establish what all the costs are gonna be, before we can establish what the DOT is gonna say about their intersections. So they'll have to compare it against what UW campus was at all of its glory when we had the max amount of traffic. So time needs to be given to do proper due diligence to figure out exactly what the envisionment of the county and the city is before we can proceed forward with projecting out the cost and what the DOT impact is going to be.
And one of the things that we talked about when we met with the city was, because we have no interest in developing on the campus property, to potentially look at that as a future government center, that is something that we could maybe look at down the line, and that's all built into this. And so we need to know where our board is at, so that we can say to the city, yes, please get going with these plans because we don't want them to waste money. And in the end say, oops, I'm sorry, we're not going to do this. It's the last thing we want to see happen.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So if I'm understanding that, it sounds like we kind of need to get the whole best effort at full plot plan in order to go to DOT, and then once we've done that, we're kind of locked in. I understand that, right?
yeah, there's always variations that can be created, but I think, so for example, on this, it's probably hard to see, but in this area here, I said, okay, well, it's potential governmental building and light commercial over top of the current primary campuses now, which I think aligns with a lot of what SDH was proposing and what you talked about, right? So then, you know, we have to, the DOT is going to say, well, how much traffic is that? Well, if that's a governmental building that is county related, we have to assign a traffic number for that, right? Let's say some type of emergency service was located there. We have to factor the traffic for that, right? We have to factor ins and outs. And is it dangerous when emergency vehicles travel that or police travel that? To the north, then I've got up there that this would be a form of transitional housing. A lot of times in kind of community design, you'd go from a light commercial or governmental into multifamily, and then you roll into maybe duplexes, and then you roll into single family. So there's transitional. The more that an individual has invested in their home, the more likely it is they're going to care about what's across the street. So a lot of times in community design, those are things we're considering. But up there, I said, well, you know, there could be 300, a potential for 300 units established to the north. Well, 300 units, now we've got to establish that there's 2 people per unit and 2 cars, 2 to 3 cars or 2.5 cars, whatever they, well, that's 700 cars times how many times do they go in and out a day? Got to plan at least 2. So, you know, that's how the DOT will work with us on estimation. And then they'll look at what we've got out here on a controlled access highway and say, yeah, with those new numbers and new standards, this is really the direction we're going to let you go, or, you know, you can consider this or this. Does that make sense? And we do that for the whole site. We have to do that for the whole site. So we've got to consider the reuse of the high school where they're purchasing, right? They could have this parking lot. We haven't seen it full in a long time. 10 years, 15 years. High school may have plans to fill that thing every once in a while. And so now we're creating different traffic patterns where we already know that the DOT, the local community has said, the high school included has said, we're highly concerned about the Hive Drive intersection. And people are saying, can't we do something proactively? And we keep saying to the DOT, can't we do something proactively? And the advice I get back is you just got to keep pushing. And when we say that this is our vision for this area, that will be another push. And so we're likely to get more information out of them and more direction out of them with regard to what their recommendation or their future plan is for that access point. So it just builds off itself.
And I think we have to remember too, that these decisions are not county board decisions. These are really decisions that the city will take the lead on as they work through the project, because they're the ones who have the grant, who are looking towards that infrastructure. What we are needing from the committees are to say, yep, this sounds like a good plan and let's proceed with it. The city has asked for a potential MOU or some kind of an agreement. So we have something in writing that says this is what the county's expectations are. This is what the city's expectations are, so that we're all on the same page. We really don't want to get to be 6 months down the road again where we have a strained relationship because we went into it with different understandings.
So this would be kind of a partnership then between the county and city to a certain extent.
It has to be. I mean, right now, the county owns the land, whereas the city has the regulatory authority over it. And so we have to work together. I think in a perfect world scenario, which may not be the desire of the county board, but in a perfect world scenario, if we could simplify, streamline this where there was an agreement, maybe a development agreement or something of the sort between the county and the city, outlining those expectations, the goals, timelines, things like that. And then the land conveyed to the city. So that way we're making it easier for a developer to work with an entity and get something done in the most efficient way. But I think that is a big ask of the county to make that sort of commitment. And so outside of that, we have to be working together really well.
And so let me just add on to that. So one of the complexities that I think is a good one to highlight, we can go right back to roads again, right? So when we're creating, what we're basically creating is a new platted subdivision or addition to the city. It's going to be served by city roads. It's going to have to be maintained by anybody living there and their tax dollars. And so right away, when we start doing more conceptual design for where the roads go and what's the DOT allow and where's there a bridge and all that stuff, we're creating with our projected road right-of-ways. And road right-of-ways have to be owned by the municipality, right? So it's back to Ashley's point, I think it's the easiest, but there has to be a comfort, it's easiest if there's a conveyance with some type of an agreement that says, we agree we're going to do this, 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 and this. This is how we're going to communicate. This is what we'll end up with back, perhaps, because then that takes the red tape out and we're able to go, okay, roads, oh my gosh, the engineers said this, the DNR said that, the DOT said this. And we're moving every single day trying to get this thing to work. And it makes it very difficult for there to be, in essence, two highly involved decision-making bodies. You can imagine, well, they won't let bridge option A or bridge option B. And then we're back going through all the city, and then all the county, figure out bridge option A or bridge option B. And so that probably isn't feasible.
Yeah, I want to see if I can back and see if it sounds right. Sounds like in order to get the dot thing set, that's kind of our first, but it also drives us to have to decide on the overall layout so that we can determine traffic. So let's do it. What's the next step?
I think from my perspective, what I would be looking for from the committee is permission to work with the city to create an MOU or some kind of conveyance agreement to take back to the board for their approval.
And then with the MOU, the whole effort of, again, fleshing out the raw layout to make dot happy be done. A lot of burning the candle from you, I suppose.
But, I'm not sure I understand that, like the conceptual, like to take the conceptual design to the next level. Again, I think that, you know, when I hand this into our engineers, MSA or Bubrick, Josh has worked with both of them as well. You know, whatever engineer firm you pick, when you hand this into them, they're gonna immediately go, DOT, we go, okay, DOT. We get to pass the DOT and then they say vision. We've established the vision. I mean, I guess maybe you guys have another vote on the final report or something, but I think that's the vision. And so once we have that, now they will use the technical data provided by the DOT, by the DNR, by the wetland, all that stuff. And they're gonna say, well, based on that, you could put roads this way, you know, this way, or this way. And they'll come back with a couple options. We brainstorm over it and say, well, that makes this piece of land unusable, or the county can't fit what they would like to fit there, or, you know, houses don't work there. And we kind of narrow down to the actual road plan that we're projecting. And then, yes, what we end up with is a property plat that has the right of ways determined, and that's where infrastructure and the roads and the bridges would ultimately go. That's our goal, is to get there.
Can I summarize where I think the county is? That is, we see 3 uses for the property, campus property. School district and Simons. Housing on the majority of the land. And then where the existing campus is, either commercial or buildings for the county. So if that is the overall vision, right?
Exactly right. There you go.
Okay, so then we have moving targets. And I've been around for 32 years to watch city county dynamics, right? So I'm wondering whether or not we should proceed with that MOU, but we should also ask the chair of the planning commission and the chair of the reconfiguration committee to be close in on those discussions, so that then they can come back and tell the rest of us how this is going, because there's gonna be so many moving pieces in this that I'd hate to delay it with bureaucratic stuff.
I think you're right that it has the potential for that, and having those people involved would not be a bad idea. But I don't think it has to be complicated either, if we don't want it to be complicated. Because we can, right, if the board is open to conveying the land to the city and then the city pursuing the redevelopment, installing the infrastructure, getting the developers, et cetera, then we can do something as simple as the county conveys the land to the city with the agreement that a parcel will be conveyed back to the county for a governmental building or buildings. And we'll have in an agreement, MOU otherwise, an agreement that says, you know, by this date, this will be done, by that date, that will be done, et cetera. So you have assurance that it's not just going to sit unimproved, vacant, not redeveloped for forever. And we're establishing that what we see there is what is going to come. Housing is a priority, the governmental building priority, school, Simon's priority, and then all of that other stuff, like the roads, access points, we have to figure that out anyway, period. That'll have to come. But we do at the city have a clock ticking because of our HUD grant. And so I think Jason is really emphasizing the DOT element of it, because that really is a big piece that stops us from moving forward and being able to expend dollars. And then as well as having this shared understanding and commitment, it gives the city comfort in saying, hey, we're going to put those dollars towards this project, and we know it's going to turn into something real. Same feeling the county would have, right? That we're investing public funds in something that is actually going to be something.
I know it could be simple, but at the same time, I've never seen anything simple between the two. So by having those two people involved in that, think of the question just of the land transference. There's a whole series of questions in there that we wouldn't get to tonight, that those two could talk about, and then come back with recommendations.
And I just want to, if it's okay, you just got to tell me shut up.
Go ahead.
Here. So with regard to Craig, Craig and I have been talking about housing, and he probably has talked to you a number of times over the years. And you know, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, we're going, like, is there a partnership possible for housing? He's like, yep, we just gotta get things cleared up so we can go to work on it. I want to be transparent. Right now is not the time for that. That's the cart way before the horse. First thing we have to do is figure out, how do we get long-term access approved? How much it costs to even get to those spots where we want housing? How much does it cost to get the infrastructure there? And once we figure that out and can get the decision makers to say, yes, the grant covers it, yes, that's what we're going to do. Now I have the freedom and the data that I need to go to, you know, to go to the different developers that might be interested, Craig included, and say, hey, here's what we've got the money to get to. You know, what can we do on lot agreements or the marketing agreements or this or that, and what types of houses and what sizes of houses and all those things. So there's a lot of work to do before getting to that point.
And I would presume, and maybe I'm wrong, but that as a project this large, incorporating millions of dollars, you will be keeping your council up to speed on all the steps you're taking. So it's possible, as a way to ensure that our board stays involved, the report you share with your council could also be shared with our board. And that could be things we could build into the agreement.
You know, how much grant money do you have?
Well, it was a $2.5 million grant. Still have 100% of it. So to be like real, we have to go back to the city council, and you know, we're here first talking to you. We got to go back to the council. The council has already given, what would you say, Ashley, a preliminary?
They're supportive of allocating that 2.5 towards the redevelopment of the campus. A very small portion of that is Hive Drive specific. That has been approved, planned, that will go there, but that is, I don't know, 250,000 or so. And then the remainder could be used elsewhere on the campus site. The council had approved the initial proposal, that housing development, to do the infrastructure there, to utilize the grant funding there. However, as Jason has said, after the continued conversations, looking at this more broadly, and especially with the understanding that maybe in the not so distant future, a governmental building or buildings on the opposite side of that property would be highly desired, it might make the most sense, rather than spending money, what limited funds we do have on the other side, to put them all over towards where those governmental buildings would be, so we can maximize what we can actually do out there.
So is there more grant money that can be gotten after that? I mean, $2.5 million isn't going to get you very far. When you start talking bridges and roads and infrastructure, I mean, you're probably, I'm just guessing, but it's probably 10 to 20 million.
To do the whole site, for sure.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, when we're talking about this, that's a lot of commitment for the county to go in and say, yeah, here, you can have this land and do this. But if you don't have the structure if you don't have the money to back it, it's just going to sit there as vacant land.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but I mean, it's just the cost of doing that work.
We agree with you.
Is crazy, you know, and that's where I don't know how we do this, but we need to see what the DOT says, right? So that plan has to go to the DOT. I don't know that takes us to say, here, you get this land to do that process. I don't think it does. I says, this is what the development is. This is what our thought is, and see what they say first, right? That's the first step, because if we can't access it, then it's farmland, right? Or it's whatever. So, I mean, that would be my first step in this. This is a good plan, right? I'm fine with this here. It makes perfect sense. Now, if we can put some numbers to it so the DOT can say, here, this is what you got to do, then that starts the ball rolling. Because what my fear is we're going to eat up 2.5 million really quick, and there isn't anything built. And then we're wondering what we're going to do with a road that goes basically to nowhere, other than bringing chopper boxes or combines. So hopefully it's wide enough for that. So go ahead.
Thank you. It seems to me as though there should be some no-go decision points where deal could be canceled along with some clawback provisions. So that if we find that it's just beyond the means of county or the city to see that there's options available for us to consider other alternatives.
I agree. Go ahead.
Looking at the vision, seems like first step is, yeah, let's agree to the vision. Then we can start having the conversations with DOT and whatever, and then start those next conversations about what would facilitate the next step. So the MOU would include, dates and deadlines, and if deadlines aren't met, what happens? So all that should definitely be, put down in that agreement, with the understanding that nobody's breaking down our door trying to get this property from us. So,
Yeah, but it isn't costing anybody any money right now.
it's costing us money.
Not to the level that this could turn into with a
Correct.
road that goes nowhere, right? So then we took grant money and we made a road that goes nowhere. I mean, that's the reality. It all comes back to the same thing that we see. The population is declining. The age of the population is increasing. And if we're gonna continue, we gotta figure out a way to make that work. Either we gotta figure out how to get people here, which housing is a problem. We definitely know that, but you gotta have housing priced the right way for the right people. So this housing thing gets lucrative at certain levels, right? And then at other levels, it's not very favorable at all. So the middle of the road worker that is making whatever that number, that median income is, a new house doesn't fall in their market right now. And them are the people we're trying to get into this, at least from my side of it. That's who we're trying to get here. It's people work in the factories that work the work that's here. So that's where I see the biggest problem is right there. We're gonna have housing that doesn't match the worker. We're still in the same place. That's my problem.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
So some of the trends that we're seeing with housing, because like as Craig mentioned, you can't build a house for less than 300,000. And 300,000 is still a lot of money, and that's with subsidies, right? That's with.
For a commercial developer, just quickly, yeah, as a nonprofit, we're not in this to make money, we're in this to not lose money. So that's our position, and that's an advantage we have, and that's why commercial developers have moved out, so to speak. They're working in a ring around Southwest Wisconsin. But yes, it is really hard, really hard to build a quality home, family home for less than $300,000. Got to do a lot of magic, to make that happen. So that would be without subsidies. And then in the house we just did in Richland Center here, there was subsidies involved in that home, but there wouldn't need to be. But I'll let you finish until you have a minute after you.
So, I mean, more realistically, we're looking at 350 to 400, and we agree that most people can't afford that. And so the trends that we're seeing with the exorbitant housing prices, new build prices, and even existing stock, we're seeing folks transition so that that older couple that is an empty nester, they don't have the kids at home, that's a 2-story house, they don't want to live in a 2-story house, or it's too big for them. So they're wanting to transition out from that, and maybe they can afford or would like one of those new houses that would be outside of a first-time home buyer's price point, or an average person's price point. So the goal would be, knowing what we know about the housing market, to do as much as we could to have more reasonable price points like the 300 for new builds, but then also aim to have people transition from their existing homes into these new homes, and then open that market up for the other folks, so that we are serving that population that you are worried about, rightfully, by having those transitions happen, and then also making other options available. So we have Panorama and we have more apartments coming, but then also what about condos? Because we are seeing that younger folks especially aren't wanting to have to mow a yard. They're not wanting all of the traditional single family home things. And so can we have condos up there that would be a nice transition before you get into a single family home? duplexes, very popular, because it's just much more cost effective to do a duplex than a single family home. So diversifying what we have, to make that available. Because you're right, if we just build a bunch of, $500,000 homes, we're gonna have a hard time.
They're right at the top of that hill right now. You know what I mean? And that's the worry. And I mean, we hear it all the time with people coming into the area, we bring supervisors in, whatever, there's no place to live. And they're not making enough money. Typically, they would be a single person coming into the area. And on one salary, you're not gonna float a $300,000 loan, or you would. It's most would anyway. So, go ahead, Greg.
If I could, thank you. One of I appreciate where this conversation is going, because it really isn't all the above that is needed in the communities. And then, if you can increase stock in one area, it can relieve pressure in another part of that market. We are working a lot with some municipalities on zoning code and things like pocket communities and sharing spaces. Flag lots are something that we're proposing in Lancaster. But from an overall project perspective, it may be beneficial to be thinking about it in phases. And I say that because, I think I'm hearing clearly that we know housing is needed. And I would say that that should be a priority here. By thinking of it in phases, it helps us get around the idea of all the if, then, buts of the whole deal. And that's what we're doing in Lancaster. So we've got a phase 1 that's 2 houses, phase 2 that's 7 houses, and then a potential phase 3. And when we're planning the infrastructure and bringing a private road up to code, putting in sewer, water, all the infrastructure with it, we're doing the same work you're talking about right now. Environmental review and all of that kind of thing. We're doing it in those phases. So we're working with the HUD infrastructure grant. It's about 1.4 million for 9 homes. And that is street up to code, sewer, water, everything. So that 2.5 million would hopefully cover the high drive portion. You think of I call it the high drive section. May cover that, and that's about it. You're right, Mark. 12 to 20 million is kind of what I've seen is that cost. And if you want housing soon, because I sat here, earlier, and I'm thinking just from the capacity of our agency, this is 4 to 5 years away, unless you phase this out, and you can do that. Propose the project as high drive housing phase 1. The eastern side hill, phase 2, campus proper, phase 3, and design the infrastructure so that for maximum capacity. And then you can get your arms around it.
Thanks, Greg.
So to your point, so said the total infrastructure is very expensive, but this 2.5, do you guys feel like this phase approach, that this small first phase is viable? In other words, how long the overall development take? Maybe it's 5-10 years, but this first phase that we can commit to get just enough infrastructure for that. Does that sound like a viable, large enough phase?
I think that, so we believe that the funding that we have could easily, we could easily pull things together and have that development in the northwest section. No problem. The reason that we are shifting is because honestly, we want to give deference to the county. So if we find out that we can get a bridge, county land for what you guys want to do, and housing in the back, we're saying we're willing to consider that with the grant money. Because the smartest thing for the city is to say, no, we're not doing any of that. We're going to stay on high drive. We're going to improve it. And we propose that we'll stick with the housing on the hillside because that's where we'll get the highest return on investment. It will result in taxable property faster. But we're saying we've opened the conversation back up because we want to work together. We've always wanted to work together. And so we think it's a wiser decision to look at the overall master plan of the entire property and say, how do we get what we both desire the most? And you're right, 100%, Mark. We might find out, and Josh has said, other people have said it here. We might find out they're going to say, you need West Side Drive, and you're going to burn $2 million to get a bridge across there. But at least we can come to the county and the group of decision makers and say, we tried everything we could to get what everybody wanted collectively and collaboratively together. Can we come up with more money, or do we default back to where we know we can get the greatest return on investment? So it's all about phasing. It's all about having good data to make good decisions.
And that right there makes the most sense to me. Is let's see what it costs to get let's get a road that goes, what it would cost to get that road in there. And if it doesn't make sense, then I'm definitely open for the option of the other, so that we get housing and we get some movement, right? And then down the road, if it there's gonna come a point where we're gonna have to do something, right? We have to, we got building issues here, there's all kinds of things that gotta happen in the next 20 years, let's just say. I'll just take a number, 20 years. But because unfortunately it takes about that much time to get it done by the time you get the financing and everything else. But I think where I'm at right now is let's go with this plan and find out what it's gonna cost to get the road across there and how we can do that. And then if that isn't gonna work, then let's go down the other avenue and get somebody in some houses as fast as we can. To me, now I'm speaking for myself, not everybody else.
I think we need initial memorandum of understanding between the city and county. But in order to get there, I'd like to make a motion that Richland County Public Works Standing Committee and Richland County Campus Reconfiguration Committee forward to the full county board a recommendation that the campus property be used for 3 projects: schools, housing, and space for future county development or commercialization.
I would agree with that, because
that would be,
this is a very small part of our board, so we need to pass everything through them anyways, but yeah, I would agree.
I made the motion.
Second, any more discussion? 2 seconds.
What about recreation? Not mentioned in the motion.
Recreation is standard procedure for all municipal development. So it has to be considered in plotting property and development in the city. And we're highly aware, obviously, of the importance of the trails on the top. So we want, as bad as everybody in this room, to make sure we're developing a holistic community.
Right, but don't you think it should be in the motion?
In the where?
In the motion that Larry made.
I'd easily take an amendment.
Well, that's my opinion, and we're not taking the majority of the 132 acres. We're not, we might use 32 acres of it, 132. The rest is gonna be left for recreation.
So the amendment would be instead of 3 projects, 4 recreation.
That's fine. I'll make that amendment.
So you got amendment, Steve wants to add the 4th project to the current amendment. So I need a second for that amendment.
Make second.
Richard with a second. Any discussion on that? Then we'll vote on that amendment. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll go back to the original motion. We got that on the floor. We're ready to vote for that, or is there any more discussion? Ready to vote? All right, all in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. Okay, motion carries. You got that. All right. Now we're talking about the grant, number 8, discussion possible.
Well, no, I
action.
think we're talking about MOU first.
You wanna talk about the MOU?
I think we should design take something to the county board
Okay.
about a memorandum of understanding.
Yeah, well,
So they can take it back to the funder.
Our administrator stated of wanting to be able to negotiate with the city and come up with that. We want to just give her permission to, okay, start the talks and then bring it back to us so we know what we're taking to the board.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that because then they can sort that out. We don't need to sort that out. So we need a motion for that, a motion
I
for.
think we can just direct the administrator to do that.
Commissioner adopted this.
Thank you.
Perfect, thanks, Dave. Anything else on this? Got that taken care of? So, all right, number 8, discussion possible action on transfer grant to property to the Richland School District.
So when we started the process of transferring the land and the buildings to the Richland School District, we weren't fully aware of the LWCF grant. As we've been working on trying to finalize everything, we realized that for us to be able to transfer the land, we have to transfer the totality of the grant property to them. As the DNR, when we've had discussions with them, said you cannot break up the grant property, it has to stay with one entity. School district is comfortable with taking over the land where the tennis courts are. And so we are asking that we amend the land that we're transferring to the school district to comply with the grant land requirements.
Didn't you pull that stuff off? I think it's 8. Or you can see, no, 8C.
Go the other way, other way. Should be right
Next
there.
one.
Right there.
I think it's the next one.
This is,
The next one is what we have currently agreed to, but if you go back to the first one, we're adding the area around the tennis court. Now, the tennis courts need to be condemned based on the condition that they are in. That is something that we will be doing before it gets transferred to the school or as an agreement, because the school said they will only take that land with the courts gone. With us having the demo there, we'll work on getting them out of there through that process. But this is the land area in addition to the lower left corner there that will be transferring to the school district. This does not stop future potential road projects or that. It really is about making sure this land is accessible for public recreation, like Steve has talked about. We did talk about transferring land and looked at other options. It would take a very long time to do some of those things.
them tennis courts, were they required because of that grant?
They're not, we just have to have the land be available for recreation.
This map, well, the other map shows land on the other side of the creek.
Yeah, I thought that was in the original.
Which is,
So we still want to send that land. So everything that was on the other side of the creek will still go to the school district, but we're adding the area of the tennis courts.
I'm just saying this map should have showed that.
I wanted this map to show what the grant is. So this shows just the grant. Sorry. So it's kind of merging the two
They are
together.
gonna take over that sliver of land.
Correct. Correct.
I'd be interested in hearing the city's view on it.
And one thing I'm gonna say before you guys give your opinion, if we step out of this grant and don't follow the grant parameters, we are forever banned from getting another grant from this. Yes.
I think first and foremost, what a shame that like a $12,000 grant from what,
83, 81?
yeah, older than me, is creating a hurdle like this. So I just acknowledge that it's absurd. Our preference at the city, I should say my preference would be that going through the long process, which I understand it could be like 2 years to relocate it. I think that would be more desirable than continuing to have this encumbrance on that parcel. I think it would be worth it, but that's not my decision.
And the school district can still do that. So we can still transfer the grant to them, transfer the land. And if we find that it is in the best interest of everybody involved, that the land be transferred, you know, we swap here for there, that can still happen. The school district can still do that.
So what's the likelihood we'd ever want to go after another similar grant? Sound like 12 grand is,
I think Mike is on, and I think we have a few other grants that we've worked on with them. Is that correct, Mike? You are muted, Mike, so I don't know if you're talking or not. I think we have some grants with them right now.
so there is a downside.
So do we have the option of paying back the $12,000? Is that,
Doesn't sound like it. No, and I need the discussion.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, the reason I asked the question for you, was in the memorandum of understanding, whether we need to add a representative from the school district, so you can work all this stuff out in the broader vision together.
So, I have had conversations with Steve. I don't know if the county has to, Trish and Josh have been talking, and so like, there's been a long ongoing conversation about access from the East Hive Drive back, I'm sorry, from the west back to the east, right? So can you always go around a tennis court? Yep, you can. But if we find out that the contours are such and the land layout is such and the infrastructure is better, the sewer, the water, the storm is better moved, that's been my caution all along. It's like, and so I've actually mentioned it to Steve. I'm like, Steve, we are 100% supportive. Like this whole transaction has to go through the city plan commission and the city council. So, like, we're supportive of using it if we can, but where I have heartburn about it as well is if we find out that it makes the most sense that a new public right of way needs to go through that tennis court. And to your point, Mark, the total development of infrastructure up there is $20 million. That's a pretty, yes, it'll take time and energy, but it may be worth it. And so having some type of acknowledgement that we acknowledge that it'll stay there for now, but we want the openness to negotiate. Should we find out that not being able to move it costs us another $500,000? Like,
But no, the
we
tennis
move it.
courts will be gone.
Huh?
They'll be gone. The tennis courts will be gone.
Gotcha.
So we don't have to worry about, you know, building around the tennis courts or infrastructure. They will be gone.
Good. Then it's just a matter of figuring out if the law will approve us of using it as a right of way space. And we'll have to cross that bridge. That's good.
When we've had discussions with them, they say, as long as you're continuing to allow access and a road allows access to the property, is what they're telling us.
Any other questions? So we need a motion for this, to transfer the LWCF grant property to the Richland School District.
I'll make that first motion.
Second, Rod, second. Discussion. Rod, Barry would second. Discussion. Any more? No more. They started discussing. All right, we'll go for a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All, against?
I'm gonna abstain just because
Abstain.
I'm on the school board.
I was gonna say, we got the school,
Duly
we got the
noted.
school board right here.
Tiffany's on the school board, so she has abstained. All right, motion carries. Moving on, number 9, discussion possible action for projected demolition project outlook.
Okay, that map should have been in the packet, right, Trish? Thank you. We included it in there. So the county board voted, we entered into the contract with the Robinson Brothers. Contracts were finalized as of yesterday and then turned over to Robinson Brothers, and notice to proceed was issued today. Next week, they will be starting demolition work at the campus, but they're only going to be starting with the asbestos removal and hazardous waste removal. They're going to start in the library building and then move over to the student building next. part of the requirements is they're gonna be getting their fencing up, they're gonna make sure that they have all the permits and everything in place first. It's gonna be kind of a lengthier process. Obviously, its due date is November 1st, but you know, we need an answer on something. And this is gonna be the touchy one, copper top. We need to know what the county wishes to do with that. Trish, you may want to interject, but we had one interested party who is now officially backed out. So right now we have no official interest in the copper top. It is strictly a vacant building at this point. Obviously, everybody knows it'll be cheaper to demo the building while they're there, but I leave that to you guys to decide. Before I can get an actual proper timeline listed between now and November, we need a decision on copper top.
Can we just get a refresher on the present condition of the building as far as all the stuff that would need to be done to it to make it viable again?
Boilers would have to be replaced, water lines would all have to be redone, the electrical will all have to be done, new service added for the electrical, gas lines will have to be rerun, and sewer lines will have to be rerun. So right now, it is strictly a shell of a building with a lot of water damage.
Breaks my heart. But I move we put the copper top on the list.
And so I'm gonna need a second for that. Shirley, second. Any discussion?
Yeah, the only other person I heard interested in that building is Craig. I'm wondering if Craig Woodhouse will, what was your idea?
Well, so, yeah, I mean, I appreciate that brief update there, John. So in short, NHS and Southwest Cap have an interest in the facility. Again, preliminary, not knowing what you just said. Or the anchor business there would be Head Start and education. Currently, you know, so understand, yeah, we've talked about a lot of investment there. I can't answer that specifically tonight, but we want to continue Head Start programming in Richland Center. We want that to be strong, and we're in a building right now that's for sale. And we need a new location for Head Start. That would be the anchor, and then similar to some of the other proposals, you know, we could build out a project proposal plan from there. But so that's.
But the infrastructure problems you just heard would nullify that, I would think.
I can give you some more information on that, like a dollar figure of what it would get to make it fully functioning. That's just what it is right now. It's probably 1.1 to 1.2.
And then knowing that, I mean, I would still be interested, and you know, so again, we have a motion here on the table, but you know, I would request a little bit of time to look at that. That's not, you know, that number is something that's potentially reasonable. That also, you know, I hope would feed into some of the vision that we've been talked about here, if that's possible. Again, having an education facility there that's anchor and solid funding base, and the business plan built up from that. So I'd like to ask for a little bit of
I got
time.
all kinds of good questions. Shirley, you go first.
So in addition to the infrastructure for the building specifically, does it also require road access, parking lots, things of that nature,
That would all have to go with it, yeah,
in addition to that?
correct.
That's probably not bringing it up to ADA standards either.
No, that is just to make it functioning.
1 million isn't even enough.
Yeah.
Tricia had her hand up.
I think the one thing that I just wanted to share is, you know, if the copper top is kept, that nullifies the ability for the county to potentially build a government center there in the
Does
future.
what?
That's nullifies the ability of the county to do a government center there in the future. Because there wouldn't be space to have that.
Well, just another, and the other thing is if we're talking about bringing infrastructure in there, that copper top's right in the middle, right in the way. I mean, I'm not a road designer, but I can see where if I was going, that is exactly where I would go.
I'll just tag on, absolutely right. Now, do we know for sure? No, we do not. But again, from an overall master comprehensive plan, you know, for the city and for what's best for the county. I would just request that there would be no sales transaction done until we know what the definitive infrastructure pathways are, what we need a bridge or things like that, because you sell a property and again, what do we gotta do? Divert the road and infrastructure around it, a cost of several $100,000.
Gosh, I can't tell from the drawing whether what was all included in the cover top altar. It looks like.
Could we zoom in on that at all? All there is is a turnaround in front of that copper top. The rest of that is job. There's a bridge, comes out of east parking lot.
It's all sidewalk.
It goes across and goes in front of that.
There's a patio area to the.
Correct. Basically, all the concrete surrounding the building, the flagpole, the ramps, all through there, and then 2 sidewalks connecting you to the street. That is the area that goes with copper top. Everything you see highlighted in pink with the little checker marks through it, that is what goes with copper top. That's pretty much a large chunk of the property, so that's to reinforce the fact that it would hinder any type of redevelopment there in the future if that remains.
I just want to point out again that yes, boilers are shot, it's got some repair costs, but as of now, the shell is stable and it can get through winter. I just feel like there shouldn't be a rush to tear it down. Something still might pop up like that.
There have been some leakage issues and things like that with the roof and things, haven't there?
Yeah.
Separate from the frozen pipes that cause water damage.
There's lots of issues, windows, doors. It's probably the worst shape that was, I don't know,
Probably worse shape in the library.
yeah, than some of the other buildings.
And another winter, it's only gonna get worse.
I'm just thinking, that's housing, and they're talking Head Start, children and stuff, that there's no hurry on this. Maybe we should give them 30 days. See what happens.
Demo starts next week. It's gonna get tight on the timeline because the contractor has to know whether they have to include the copper top to meet the November 1st deadline or not. We're potentially dragging out another year.
And again, I'm just gonna reiterate that it's gonna be cheaper. They're already there demoing stuff. To have it just demo versus bringing them back, it's gonna cost more.
It may be more affordable for them in the long run to look at a purpose-built facility to compared to sinking $1+ million into what would, bring it just to what it was and then have to then convert it to appropriate Head Start classroom space and usage. So maybe other facilities that might be a better option.
Steve, do you have anything? All right, so Rod made the motion. I don't remember who said it. Shirley seconded. We're ready to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
1, 2 opposed. Second motion carries. All right, we can add it to the list, yeah.
Will do. Otherwise, to wrap up the demo, now that we have a decision on copper top, I'll notify Robinson Brothers SEH. We'll do an amendment to the contract as a add-on, and then we'll talk about the tennis courts as we get there. Otherwise, we'll have a better timeline put forward for the near future, but work will start next week. And one thing I want to note, yes, we're going to be putting up fencing around the area. We're really going to be focusing fencing between like Melville Hall, the Copper Top area up around the library. But we do plan on having to adjust that as we go. General public, as sooner or later, they're going to be wanting to walk in and out of there, get whatever sentimental value things they can find. So that'll be an ongoing issue probably for site security.
Question, does the demolition include the concrete work around the building?
Correct.
All right, anything else?
Steve, one more. What's the status on all the large trees?
On the property, All the trees on the property, if they are in the way during demolition, they will be removed. If they can work around the trees without having to take them down, they'll leave them there.
But the intent is to try to work around them.
Correct.
All right. Moving on. Number 10, discussion possible action on power to maintenance shed at campus property.
Okay, that shed, if you wanna bring that map back up again, that shed is right in the middle of all this project stuff that you guys are discussing, up past the tennis courts. You can see where Simon's is at. There's that little road that goes up. There's a pole shed up there. Had discussion about moving our maintenance shop up there from the campus gym where we're currently at, but once the school takes that over, we have no place to have our maintenance stuff and our plow truck and all of our equipment and stuff. So we were gonna, discussion for you was to remodel that building to make us a shop. So we had concrete poured in it here a couple months ago, in half of it. Now we need to run electric and all that stuff. I contacted Scott Gold with the city. We have a transformer right behind Simon's. He said it was gonna run around about $2,000 to get that trenched in and power up to that shed. My question is now, is that building gonna be anywhere in the way for that development? Now seeing their proposal and all that other stuff, is that gonna be an issue? I just asked Josh a question and I think he thought I was talking about the easement to get to it. I'm not worried about the easement to get to it. I'm more worried about the development that's gonna go in behind it now. And possibly right in behind Simon's. Is that gonna affect changing this into a shop?
Well,
Maintenance shop.
I guess so this cost estimate for the project is $3,500. So how much more money are we talking about putting into this building to get it usable as a shop? Now, so is it a heated,
Well, you're gonna
you know,
have,
you know what I'm saying? What level of shop are we looking for? So is it 3,500 is pretty cheap, but if it turns into 40,000, then
No,
it's
no,
a
no,
different, you know.
no, we've, like I said, we only concreted half of it. I wanna build a wall and, to section it off and then just sheet it and put some outlets and stuff in there. So, and put a heating unit in it so we can run it at 50 degrees so that we can get have a place for our plow truck in winter. Cause if we don't have a place for our plow truck, it can't sit outside and be frozen up all night long. It has to be in a heated building. So if we don't have that building for heat and if we're not gonna be in the school maintenance shop, if they say, okay, we're not gonna let you there, I get it. Where are we gonna put that truck this winter? That has to be, a decision is gonna have to be made. Where are we gonna put that truck this winter and our equipment?
I don't understand why we need to have a truck there if we're tearing down the buildings. We have Simon's that's still there. Why would we need?
Because we don't have
Trucks here,
any
for
other
here.
place to put it.
There's nowhere else in the county properties we have.
There are some bays downstairs in the building here that are being used by the sheriff's department. So they park their vehicles.
In my opinion, it doesn't make sense to invest in a shop.
Good. Anybody else?
So aside from that, what other equipment or other things do you need to store and where would you put them?
All our lawnmowers for the county parks, all that stuff will go in there, everything. Yeah, all the tools and equipment and saws, everything from the shop and stuff we have here, a place for us to work out of. So to do repairs and stuff.
How much stuff is in that shop right now? I mean, are we totally using it or is this?
No, we haven't moved anything yet
No,
because we
the
have,
one you currently are in.
it's packed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
we've got,
So is any of that the school districts now?
no,
That's
none of
just
it.
ours.
It's all ours. We've got scaffolding, we've got tanks to do all our spraying for the trails. We got 3 or 4 tanks and water tanks and just,
Electric labs.
yeah, just lots of equipment and stuff that's gotta be stored.
I understand the convenience of using an existing building, but in the grand scheme of what we have in for that property, doesn't seem like.
The only thing I'd bring up, so this property thing is not gonna happen in a year, 2, 3 years. So most likely, it may be 10 years. And if we need storage for something until we can redirect everything, I mean, there's a price point, right? I look at a price point in that. So let's just say we're gonna be in that building for 10 years. And if we're gonna spend $10,000, let's say we're gonna spend $10,000. It's $1,000 a year for that. I think we would get our money out of it rather than renting. You know what I mean? Or taking away from Josh or taking away from I don't know. Right? But I'm assuming that's got 40 years worth of stuff in it. We've been taking stuff out of everything. I'm not saying we can't downsize some more, but there are gonna be certain things that we still need. So that would be my only point. So that's the only reason I bring it up.
So I checked into the Heartland building down here when they had it up for rent. They wanted 2,200 a month. I guess 20-some thousand a year.
Yeah.
Do we want to pay that for rent or leasing? You know, for a heated building.
Well,
Then you got to pay your utilities and everything else too. So.
More comment.
Have we talked about using it? I don't know if the school district will be turning it over. All that quickly too, was that discussed with the school district?
I don't know what their plan is.
Leaving the stuff there even for.
They have said they're not gonna kick us out. You know,
Right.
They've said, we're not gonna rush to get you out. Eventually you have to get out, but they're gonna give us some time to get things transitioned. You know, my guess is if we can finalize everything in August or September, we should try to be out by then.
So how in the way is that bullshit?
What's that?
The phasing that we've, drafted, like the first phasing that we did 5 years ago showed that you would likely have a roadway that went right through the area. And of course you have to work on the pathway for parks and recreation, and we're creating runoff situations, which probably would have to be retaining ponds. So there's probably, once you get to that point, there's probably no way to keep it. But I agree with what Mark is saying. What you guys are saying is like, well, again, we don't know yet where we're going. And so it's possible. I mean, it's possible that ends up being the first thing and you get 2 years out of it. Or it's possible that it's 10, you know, it's really hard to say.
Any more comment? Yes, Dave.
Just saying that, yes, it's an investment now, but compared to finding an alternative, it still seems to be probably the cheapest option, you know?
Well, can we cap it to, we're only gonna spend $10,000 or $8,000 or whatever that number?
And that was my question was, I want to get some more concrete numbers. I had talked to Trish today. I would like to get some more numbers from an electrician on what the cost would be to put the breaker box in, put the meter socket in, once the wire or everything's been run by the city. To have that trenched in and put in up there. And then I've already got numbers for materials. I priced all that out today. And I can do all the work myself. I've done construction for 30 years, so I can build the walls, sheet it, do all that stuff. I just need it wired.
What's the cost for the materials?
It was like $2,500 for the sheeting.
So we're at 5,000.
Yeah.
Plus putting it in, the service and another couple thousand. We're pretty close to 10,000, I'd say.
Randy, does the city have to run that power?
Yes. Yep, because it comes off their transformer.
That, where in the city is that way?
That location isn't customer choice, so they would have to get city electric. Unlike if you shift over a ways, like 300 feet or so, then it could be either REC or.
You can't jump off the existing Simon's building, power and run under there. They'll have to put a meter on that building.
Each building has to have their own meter.
On the 500.
Yes.
We're not committing this for 10 years down the road. In the future, whenever we need to go through there with a road or whatever, then they move their stuff out and take it down. I mean,
Yep.
it's a good short term.
Well, can I get him? Go ahead, Larry first.
So I move for the Public Works Standing Committee and the Richland County Campus Reconfiguration Committee. Power to maintenance shed campus property and remodel for some not to exceed 12.
I got
I'll
a second.
second that.
Richard was second. Discussion. Any comments? All right, let's vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Now, if campus reconfiguration wants to adjourn, they are able to. Rest of the items are public works.
Make us.
Yep.
That's nice.
Is there a motion?
Oh.
You have a quorum if I leave. Oh, geez.
You got a second?
Second for that.
Second.
Second by Mr. Engel. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Nays? We're done.
All right, number 11. Discussion possible action on future camping on county property.
Turn the air back.
Sure. Steve Levin? You leave, you're staying. You're staying. Yes, but yes, you can turn the air on. We'll just have to.
No, just turn the fan, the two buttons right behind it, turn those to the left, That'll turn the fans back on.
I don't think the air ever shut off, dude. It just ain't doing that.
It's just not, you can't keep up with this.
All right. Okay. Future of camping on county property.
So this is a topic that's been discussed quite a bit.
Bet.
And so we wanted to ask this committee to have a discussion about it and to really guide us when we do our budget planning on what we should be budgeting for.
So we presented it and got opinions multiple different ways of, proceeding with having camping. How do we bring it up? So it's the least amount of management that goes into it. How are we going to collect the fees? How are we going to monitor it? And it was also thrown out there, well, maybe we just do it as a day use because the county doesn't have the funds to invest into these properties and or manage them as actual campgrounds. So about a year before it was actually brought to the committees, I had been working with Marilyn Peckon for MIS, and we started kind of laying out the facilities of what it would look like as actual campsites. Like how would we lay out where the campsites are going to be, and then eventually move into a digital platform for a website, and then put a link on the county's website and pay for it. It actually came down to, okay, what fee system are we going to use? How are we going to distribute the fees? Whether the county's going to pay them, whether the people using the site are going to pay them. And then we ran into the problem where the state identified that the campsites are not within 400 feet of the well, and we got a citation for it. And then that kind of set us back on how do we do this? How do we stay in compliance, but also offer camping? So then we actually took a hard look at the facility. And really where you see campsites 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 possibly are actually out of range for the water, but is the best ground to actually camp on. And the only way to get access is to go into that gravel parking lot. And yes, you'll have access to 1, 2, 3, but 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you'll have to drive through very swampy, muddy ground to get there. So then you're theoretically needing to build a road, which is going to require quite a bit of investment, environmental research, DNR coordination. And then it still arrives at the point of who's going to be available to monitor. Right now, for parks, there's Randy, and we have a parks technician, and really all he has the time for is keeping the properties mowed, trimmed, and then picking up some branch and sticks, and then checking up on the people is the hard part. We put a Band-Aid on it by still allowing people to come and pay for their campsites with a sheet of paper and a receipt, but they had to come to the highway department during hours of operation, Monday through Thursday. Our clerk would have to stop what she's doing to take care of that and then follow up for how long they were there. And then it led to the squatting, the trash, and obviously a lot of the time invested in the cleaning up. So I think that gives a good enough background on it. Trish, am I missing anything? Otherwise, at this point, I know the county doesn't want to take anything away from the individuals. They want to provide the camping. So I think we're recommending we're asking better direction on how do you want this to proceed forward? And we are looking at theoretically having to add summertime staff, vehicle, phone, management of the finances to make this happen.
So there's campers sitting there now.
There's
2
campers.
weeks ago, there was campers, they were camping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had multiple phone calls in the last couple of days and, well, couple of weeks of people asking to use campground. I said, I can't say yes or no. It's
So they just use it for free.
I asked them to make donations. We have donation, or we have the payment types or whatever, the box.
Natural Bridge is
But-
closed, store is closed.
And we've also took the time to request that they come and fill out and pay their $10 fee for being, oh yeah, we'll come. And then they don't show up.
Understood. So that's just where I'm kind of going with this. So that's where the online pay. I don't know how the city does it.
We have, through our Parks and Rec department they use a program called Sportsman's, which we'll be transitioning away from. But if you want to rent a campsite or a shelter, you go online, you rent it online, pay online, and it's all taken care of that way.
So, and then mine was not so much this, it's the fairgrounds. That's where my focus was, is the fairgrounds. Across the road from the fairgrounds is wide open. And to me, that's where the campers come in and they bring a kayak and they go to Pine River, they go wherever. That is where I want, that's what my vision of campsites were. They're already camping here, whether we're getting any money or not, because we're not policing it. They're just pulling in, camping for the weekend and doing whatever. One thing when I talked to Sauk County, when we were at our airport meeting, you're not gonna get rich renting campsites. They made that very clear. Now, mind you, they have a little bit deeper pockets than Richland County has to invest in that stuff, and that's where that White Mountain thing came up and what they've done there. But the main thing that the chairman of Sauk County said is you do not make money on campsites. You make money on tax. You make money on selling stuff at the stores or maybe creating a new business. So I think we need to look at, my vision of this is to try to get some campsites at the fairgrounds and get that up and running somehow. That's where my focus would be, and not looking at it as this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. What does work and what other thing does work and what other thing does work. I get the attitude towards it. I get the understanding of not having money, and I get all of that. But if we continue to think like that, this project we're talking about at the campus, it tells you right now that there ain't enough money to do that. So we should just stop that right now too, right? And everything else that we have to do.
And I think our ask today is, do you want us to build this into the budget for next year?
I would say yes at the fairgrounds. Good.
Two things. I was still public works, when this came up, how about we could get interest from the tourism or the other organizations that might want to step in and help us out. And I wondered if anything had happened with that.
So I have had meetings with Marty Richards on that subject. Marty and I had probably a good hour and a half long conversation. Right now, he is trying to focus a lot of his time on the Pine River Bike Trail. He does agree that camping should be allowed at the parks, but to what extent, he's not ready to invest heavily into that. He wants to take and keep going on the Pine River Bike Trail. He just doesn't want to see the camping stop.
And second, based on where I live, there's also my old park. I haven't heard anything about that. I just know that there's a lot of first week of deer season and first few days of trout. There's a lot of folks like to use that park, and I just wonder where things stand.
I just had a phone call today from a lady from Muscadet. She asked if she could camp there for 2 months. And I told her no, because the last discussion through the other committees that I've been to was a 7-day use. And then it was 14 days off, and then you could come back for another 7 days. I think that's what it was, or a month, something like that. So my guess is she was probably a squatter. She was trying to use that to her advantage, trying to get me to say yes. And I told her, no, it was 7 days only and then out. So she said, okay, thank you, and then she hung up. So
Marty's coming to the July 20th. I guess,
Is there additional liability by allowing camp?
Yes, so I did consult with the attorney. The liability is if we're not in compliance. So if we're having people use 7, 8, 9, we're okay. If people come and camp at 1, 2, 3, 4, definitely 10 and 11 are out. Then there is some liability on the county.
Good question. Is this campground already a campground?
No, this is a proposal.
Okay, so
To
don't-
rephrase, it is registered with the state of Wisconsin as a campground,
Yes.
but it is not actually set up with individual sites.
Okay, because I guess my question would be, with the floodplain obviously present, you have to, for campgrounds, you need to have the ability to issue a 72-hour warning of an imminent flood. And so you can't do that here. But if it's already an existing campground, you get grandfathered in, but if you're improving it, then you gotta comply and you can't comply. So is it possible to do what you're asking and comply with FEMA regulations?
Go ahead. Sorry, so
Oh, that's
in my
fine.
previous life, I was the county economic development director. And I don't know if anybody knows, because I know information falls through the crack really easy, but I helped establish what's called Rover Pass for Richland County. So all of the campgrounds at the fairground are actually listed on Rover Pass for the county already. It's an online registration system. Huh? Yep, and they don't charge you a fee, they charge X% of the fee that you take, and they just skim off it like a credit card processor. So I can tell by looking at it, so I had worked pretty hard with Carla and Marty at the time, a lot of staffing, people have changed. But it is a solution, Mark, and the Rover Pass could be upgraded probably fairly easily to accomplish what you would like, and Rover Pass is a nationwide campground renting software, online software. So I don't think there was enough staff to be able to Josh's point, like to be able to focus on it.
We were aware it existed.
Yeah.
Problem is, it never got updated. Nobody was there to maintain it. And then we ran into a lot of issues at the campgrounds with squatters and then particular people unlawful.
So if I can add to that, so from the city perspective, we want you guys to have campgrounds because it helps relieve some of the burden off of what we can provide. But to your point, Josh, it takes a lot to manage them, and we're having to use our police frequently because of issues with people that tend to frequent our sites, and then we'll bounce back and forth. So it is not an easy undertaking.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I still haven't heard status on Viola Park. I heard of one anecdote, but I don't know what the status is.
Well testing was the big one. That's what prevented Viola Park from proceeding at all, was we had a well that was testing positive for bacteria, so we had to actually change out some of the heads.
So I've been in contact with the DNR for the last past week. We've been making phone calls back and forth. We're gonna attempt that well again. We're gonna open it up next week or the week after. We've got till the end of July, and we're gonna test it again. And we're gonna see what it will. Yeah, we're gonna see what happens. And she says if it doesn't pass, she says we'll just have to shut it down. So cap it off or whatever decision gets made. So we are gonna attempt it again here in a couple weeks.
But people can still camp there. Yes or no?
It wouldn't be registered as a
Not
campground.
registered, so.
It's not registered as a campground because it doesn't provide the water.
All right. So
Has that well been flushed or used at all? Or has it just been capped?
what's been flushed? Have we been running any water out of it?
So we have not opened it at all this year because we're not using it. So we're not to flush it until we're ready to do the test, the sample.
Right. That's standard procedure. So no, it has not been opened up yet or flushed out. That's the starting procedure. You'll open it up, turn the power onto it, run the water for anywhere from 4 to 8 to all day long. And then you It's a whole procedure you
It's a
go through.
procedure you gotta follow with the DNR.
Yep, understood. Okay, some more to come on Viola, sounds like. It's a water problem. I guess this was the vision of this, right? Was to get somebody here to spend some money in the city and the county of Richland that we had, right? That was the goal. To come out here, park a camper out there and grab their kayak or their canoe or whatever, rent a canoe, rent a kayak, flow down the Pine River or go to the Wisconsin River or go whatever. That's, I see what frustrates me is I see what Muscadet does with the park. Now, mind you, they invested a lot of money in that park, but that park is full year around, damn near year around. And I just don't understand why we can't figure out a way to utilize the fairgrounds that gets used 3 times a year. That we spent a bunch of money to fix that parking, because when I was a kid, there was no parking over there, it was a fee. So that's where I'm at with this, is we gotta try to do something. Or we gotta get rid of everything that we have. Let somebody else do it. I guess that's my opinion. Now, that's just where I'm at. The rest of the board, whatever, but I guess what I'm looking for is a motion to pursue camping at fairgrounds. That would be my starting.
But I asked the directive when we were to do at Rockbridge and Viola, because those are the ones who get questioned on them.
Understood. So first off, we gotta find if Viola's water is good enough to even let anybody camp, right? Now, mind you, if you can bring your own water park trailer in there, you know what I mean? And they're already doing that at Rock. I think if we can put this thing we already have online and say there's 2 campsites or 3 campsites in Rockbridge, that would be my goal, is to push it out, and then you gotta see what we gotta do with Viola. We don't know anything about Viola right now. I'd say there's no camping there right now. Just like you've already said, but they're camping in Rock. Whether they're paying or not, they're camping in Rock.
They're still camping. I drive past Viola every day, that one.
They're just random people,
Yeah.
once in a while.
Like last year, it was super busy. Every day there were people there, it didn't matter the day. This year, it's,
The dead.
yeah, it's with one every now and then. And just 10 camping.
So I would say for your budget planning, yes, let's try to look at a parks something, what that equals. I don't know what that means. But we gotta figure out something to do with this stuff.
My question would be the flip side of that. If you're not going to have formal camping, do you then make it a day use facility and prohibit camping? And then that's another enforcement issue, or if you, if you don't prohibit it and they squat there, are we liable for things?
I'm sure all of that stuff is, all the above. And then Clay's gotta get involved to try to fix the problem, right?
And hold on to that property that you collected. I don't know if it's 30 days or something like.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like I said, Sauk County made it very clear, there's not money in camping. I agree with that. But the opportunity, there's people coming here all the time. Every bed and breakfast, every Airbnb is full in the area I lived in for 2 years. And Bob was on, he could speak to that, and everybody else, they're full for 2 years. So the people are coming here. Now, I'm sure there's more people that want to come here that own a camper. They would gladly come here, and it just seems to me like we're not capitalizing on the stuff we have. Otherwise, we don't need the stuff we have.
But I don't know, Mark, do we go as far as, if we're gonna hire somebody to design spots, look at that, we might as well have them look at Ash Creek.
Agreed. I think the first thing we need to do is try to get something going with what we have without spending more money that we don't have.
These both have wells, so they should be usable. They were in the past, but The old well didn't pass, right? So that's why we drilled a new one. Spent the money to drill a new one. In Viola.
In Viola, that's why we did that. Well, if you don't use it, you don't do anything to fix it. So I don't know how deep, you know what I mean? There's many different things on that. Okay, so go ahead, Carrie.
Let's look into the liability stuff first, because I think we do fall under statute 895.52, which is Wisconsin's recreation law. And camping is permitted in that, and it does extend to governmental agencies. Ownership does, for no duty for liability. You're immune from being liable, is what it says.
As long as you're not negligent.
Correct.
Yeah, so if you don't create a problem, you can't be held accountable for it.
If Dad Cap has come in and said our campgrounds are not,
And we're not,
campsites are not legal.
yeah, that's
then we have
a
one.
different, well, yeah, that's different altogether. What we're saying is, I can't believe the fairgrounds wouldn't be capable of a camp there. I keep focusing on that because it's the simplest one to do anything. This one here, you gotta restrict everything out there, so you gotta kind of barricade it so they can't go there, right? And it's kind of the same thing with Viola.
Then what I'm getting at is like, if somebody just mysteriously shows up at one of our county parks and is camping there and they get hurt, we're not, I don't think that we're liable. That's where I'm getting at. So if we could just, I don't know, but then you got the aspect of squatting. Reason why we talked about this in the past and tried to create an ordinance is so we were able to be able to enforce squatting. Be able to have that because. So.
And I
What is a
think-
license?
And I think that's part of, I think that's part of all of this, is to come up with a plan, right?
So what if it was something simple as continue camping within the enforcement of state law for the remainder of this year to present a budget for future planning for year 2027, focusing heavily on the fairgrounds?
Yeah, I'm all for that. We gotta do something to go forward. So if we take Josh's words, create a motion for that, right?
There's already a motion out.
Oh, there already is a motion out there, and that was to, can you read?
Pursue the development of camping in the
It's already there. We still have the license for the FB campground?
Rockbridge, we do.
I have no idea.
I think we do at the fairgrounds too.
I
It
just
should
keep
be at the
asking
fairgrounds,
questions.
and we have to have
Clear,
that. And there should be
understand
maps, they mapped out. I
Okay,
don't know what happened to it when the thing got thrown away.
Well, the motion is even necessary for this agenda item, it's asking. to Provide direction.
True.
for budget purposes.
so if we've already made a motion, we gotta nullify the motion, right?
But you can either rescind the motion or you can just vote against it.
Yeah, I'd say let's have a vote on this, and I would highly encourage voting against it. For the motion, suing the campground at the fairgrounds, or campsites at the fairgrounds. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? No, so the no's win it, so the motion is defeated. Now the direction is to pursue.
To pursue, allowing camping the remainder of 2026, following all legal law and requirements, and presenting a budget for better camping procedures for 2027.
Well, this is just direction, right? This is direction for the committee. So the other direction I would give is the payment. I want to see what that is, and I want to see the campsites at the fairground. If we already have all that stuff, there's no sense doing a bunch of extra work to see what that is. Let's see bring it to our meeting so we can see what it is. I think that's what, and if there's stuff for Viola and there's stuff for Rockbridge, all of it, so we can see what it is. Then we go from there. This is what happens. Okay. Next, number 12, discussion possible action request for use of the courthouse lawn.
So I had the park apartment residents approach me and ask if they could have a rummage sale in a Friday and Saturday in August in the courthouse lawn. and bring it to the committee policy.
What sort of rummage sale is it?
Sounds like all the residents want to get together. They said their housing area isn't enough. And so they're looking to try to set up tables for the residents. I'm assuming it'll be smaller stuff. I can't imagine. They're not large.
That's not benefiting the county. And I think if we allow a rummage sale, we're like worms.
I would encourage the residents to contact the city about what street block.
Your lawn.
That way, I don't think that use of the courthouse lawn for personal.
This farmer's market used to be on that courthouse.
On the
Right-
street,
Right,
on the street.
right here
Not
on
in the
this
law.
courthouse. Every Saturday. Well, that's all I'm saying, is it was there every Saturday.
I could, as the property manager of that facility, that request is from the residents, not from park department management or neighborhood housing services.
The only issue I see is Friday, we have enough issues with parking here. I don't know how much space they're gonna need, but then you got the people stopping to look at their stuff and they're gonna be.
Friday would be the best day. Well, I just need to,
Would they be leaving their stuff overnight?
probably not, because you probably want, it might disappear.
But it seems like it might be more appropriate if they maybe rented a park shelter or did something like that where you don't have concerns about, is it benefiting the whole county for them doing that and the personal gain, et cetera? Like maybe there's an alternative.
Well, I'm guessing it's because they live right there and they can walk down out of their house and do it right there. That to me makes perfect sense.
Not that I want to get nitpicky on the whole rummage sale thing, but if they just open their doors and let people come in with the stuff numbered, use their own apartments or.
We can approve it or not approve it. That's what we're here to do. It's not really, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? You don't have to.
Yeah, I just. Have a motion.
No, we don't. We just
Do you
here.
need a motion?
I think we'll need a motion on this.
So make a motion that we don't approve.
Don't approve it? Dave seconds it. So the motion is that we do not approve the use of the courthouse lawn for rummage. Any more discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Discussion, possible action on Blue River Bridge update.
This is talking about the bridge that is off of Highway 60 right at Port Andrew that takes you across to Blue River. It's a very old bridge in very bad shape. It was supposed to be built in the year 2027. Emergency services, so on and so forth. It was deemed as a bad plan to do it the way they were going to do it because it was going to take 2 years to get done, which would greatly hinder emergency services, so on and so forth. So they went back to the drawing board. Right now, the bridge is expected to be built in 2032.
Okay. Thanks for the update. Anything else from that, Steve?
It won't last that long, but I would like some.
It might.
Cross it enough, but I would like updated safety information. We're averaging one a weekend out there now, accident. It's got, I don't know, we looked at that safety data. The original plan, they were gonna do it over 2 years and we were 60% of our fire district is on that side of the river. Got it switched, but it's, still 6 years out. So.
No action needs to be done on that. Discussion possible action on tax deed parcel process, so.
Mark,
Floor is yours.
Mark, you brought this up, so I'm going to kind of ask you where you would like me to start first.
Well, I think first off, nobody understands, a lot of people don't understand the process and what we used to do, and I think the process has changed. As far as.
Guys in Sauk County, it's changed again.
Yeah, and
Just recently? Yep.
so that's why we asked you to explain what we should be doing to get these tax parcels back so that we can build houses on them and make some money, right?
I don't know about that, but we'll see. Okay, so we did have some changes.
for the tax deed process since 2023. Some laws have been changed since then. Some of the things that we have to do is actually a lot more. And we have a short window to do that. So we have a mandatory advertising deadline that we have. We used to have 240 days to do that. We now have 180 days. And that's at the start of when we actually get the tax deed.
Let's go back a couple steps.
Okay.
Okay, so when are we going to take a tax? When are we going to take a parcel? What would cause us to take a parcel? And let's start with that before we get into the what's and the hows.
So I did hand this out, but this is just what I have, so I can kind of briefly give you guys kind of the start to finish. And as far as tax deed goes, because it is quite a lengthy process, it can take over a year to do. So just bear with me with it. It's going to be pretty long. So for example, tax deeds for 2025 were done in December 2025. The first installment was January 31st. The second installment is July 31st of this particular year. If you miss any of those installments, you now become delinquent, accrue interest at 1% each month until that balance is paid in full. If you do not pay that balance for that particular year on September 1st of this year, 2026, that now gets a tax certificate, which has a redemption period of 2 years. So that redemption period is 2 years. Within that 2 periods, as well as this year, we send out delinquent notices in March, June, and in November. Once it gets a tax certificate, we also have to actually send a letter out as well. So in 2027, we would actually have to send out delinquent notices in March, June, September, November. Again, those are all courtesy. I do that because mainly it's shown to increase the ability to help us get paid on a faster note. We have cut costs with that, but I digress. January 2028, send in another courtesy letter because I do have to publish it in the paper. I do send a letter out to them to make sure that they are aware that their names will be published in the paper because it is public information. February 2028, the expiration of time publication is in the paper for 3 weeks. 2 more delinquent notices go out in March and June of 2028. Delinquent research continues to accrue after that. I send out courtesy letters, letting them know that the tax deed process can start in that September of 2028. I research the parcels, send title requests to the Corporation Council, and prepare tax deed reports on all of those parcels for you to look at. September 1st of 2028 is the first earliest date that we can start the tax deed process. And that would be giving a Corporation Council a list to send out final letters to people. They usually give them about 30 days with the attorney letters. After that 30 days is when I will start the notice of application. For all the notice of application for tax deed, I have to send out certified letters to every single mortgage company, IRS, interested parties, owners that are there, and also in best practices to be published in the actual paper. So after that, there's an affidavit of service that I do get back from those. I actually have to give that information to the county clerk. And that I collect that either at the last, the receipt, or within 90 days after the publication. I'll prepare those, and that's mid-January of 2029. After that point, then that gets brought to the Public Works Committee. I prepared the tax deed sheet for you to kind of give you a brief rundown of why these tax deeds, whether they be a good option or not a good option for you guys to make a best guess and justification for those. Then you guys can decide whether or not need a certified appraiser or going to use the fair market value from the last tax bill. And then you guys would have to decide if that goes on to county board or not. Please note that any land that's in DNR has to be approved by the DNR before we go forward. So late January, it would go to the county board because it has to be at least 88 days after the notice of application. A lot of these has to be done in a specific time period. So that's why having it done when you have enough time and everything is put in place means the whole world. Otherwise, you can get lost within the deadlines and you could actually get yourself into trouble if you do it too early or too late. So it goes to county board. They can either decide to take it by tax deed or not. The county clerk also reviews the legal descriptions as well during that time. Once the tax deed is approved by the county board, it has to be publicized. After the publication that's when the 180 days starts. So you have 180 days start from the tax deed publication that the county board approved to take it by tax deed, and then the first auction. So that's 188 days that you have to work with. So bear in mind, all these steps have to happen in between all that. So the county clerk and the corporation council will work on executing the deed. It'll get recorded. I have to send out notices of tax for the taxpayer for a 30-day buyback. All the municipalities, the assessor, the treasurer, the administrator has to get insurance on the property, cancel all utilities, maintenance, and sheriff has to post the notice, lock the door, shut the water off. I have to request an appraiser, and as you know, appraisers are not very time sensitive, so please take that in consideration, which I feel like will probably be most of the time in that 180 days. You guys also have to decide for Public Works on how to move forward, or I lost my space. You also have to decide on whether or not the min and max appraisals or once they come back. I have to get an itemized list of everything that has been done so you guys can get a better understanding of what your prices are to get that started. After that, it's a lot, so please bear with me. Okay, so, and then once the Public Works decides on the appraisal value starting, the value of the sale, min, you also have to decide what's going to actually put on the website for the details of the actual tax sale and for the open bids. We have to share, if you go under the appraised value that comes in, you do have to write a written statement for that, disclosing that's why you are going under the appraised value. And you also have to confirm the bid packet. The bid packet is used for sealed bids, which Attorney Russell has originally put together with us, which I will have to take to finance. To do that, that currently is not in place. So we will have to get that to executive and finance. So 6 weeks prior to the sale, the county clerk has to put a notice of sale into the observer. He also has to send out notice to the jurisdictions and to neighbors 300 feet from that particular property. I'll have to put on the website all the tax information, collect all the bids, handle any of the buybacks, and communicate with you in terms of if there is any. The first auction has to happen by August 1st of 2029. For just a particular day, it was August 1st of 2029, or February 1st of August, or February 1st of 2009. August 1st would be 180 days. That would go to executive and finance because they are determined by the county board to approve the sales for any bids that come in for tax deed. The executive and finance has two options. They can approve the bid or they can deny the bid. If they approve the bid and it passes resolution, there's several steps that we need to do. I have to receive the bid, I have to prepare the vouchers for everything, send notice out to the actual bidder that was approved. The attorney has to prepare all the deeds. So this kind of all happens at once. They execute the deed and then they prepare the deed. Then I'll have to send out written notice to anybody that is not approved and then send out any money back. Notice all of the municipality treasurers or the municipality treasurer for that particular township, the assessor as well. And then I would take everything, anything that was not paid for, I have to write off. So I take that to executive and finance. So if we don't get enough for that, we have to write off all of those taxes. So if it is not approved, then it has to be sent back to Public Works from executive and finance. And then you guys have to decide what your new pricing is going to be. And then at the same time, executive and finance also has to decide whether or not how they're going to advertise it. Are they going to advertise it on Wisconsin Surplus or are they going to do a sealed bid again? So there's twofold with that. And then you start the process all over again that I just mentioned until it gets sold. The other options are, the nice thing about, the second auction, there isn't a time frame. The first auction, we have 180 days from the time we take that tax deed to that first auction. The second auction, we do not.
We can just sit there until somebody bids on it, or we see it
We
bid.
just have to,
Like,
we have to do it over again.
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the sheriff used to be able to sell courthouse steps.
Well,
That's how the resolutions used to read.
They have like, I mean, they have like foreclosures, sheriff sales, but this
Yeah,
is totally
That's
separate.
Totally separate.
Yeah,
Not
it's
that.
totally separate. So once it's approved, it goes through all that, I now have to worry about proceeds. So owners are now, have to get the dividends of that proceeds, what's coming off the itemized and paying all the mortgage companies, things like that. If there's proceeds, I have to send out certified letters to them with a copy of the previous owner, even if they come back, even if I know they're dead, I can send it to them regardless. And if it's not claimed, then I have to hold on to it for a year. I have to take it to county board for scale of the check write-off, and then I have to track it for 10 years. So it's a lot of work. That's my detail. That's my short list.
So next question is how many parcels are in this, could be in this process right now if they're not already?
When did you give me this one? Last September?
I gave you that one last September, so write it down. So right now, that can be taken as September 1st, 2026. I have 80 owners that are delinquent that we can take. Owners, not parcel owners. One is in taxi, which we're already going to be talking about later on. One is already making payments. I won't take that for him. 5 are contaminated, which is another topic that I'd like to discuss with you, leaving 73 owners. 30 of those properties are under $1,000. One is contaminated, one is paid monthly. And a lot of those properties could be taken care of if the attorney sends out the letters or a notice of application for the taxi. That leaves 43 owners that we could start taxing. And again, this happens every single year. So if we don't do it, it's going to keep getting longer. Your publications are going to get more expensive because it's by letter. So a lot of these things do trickle down if we don't start making progress on this.
So what, next question is, what's it gonna take to make progress
So several things need to happen. Again, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of things that we need to do as far as getting the process put in place. We do need to update our ordinance. We have not updated our ordinance since 2020. A lot of things have changed. A lot of laws have changed. And right now, it's just, the ordinance just doesn't really comply in my personal opinion, or my professional opinion. So we also would have to take the bid to executive and finance to make sure that they can approve that bid that Attorney Russell did draft. The edits are out for him to look at, and then I'll take that to executive and finance. Executive and finance also needs to figure out if they're going to use the Wisconsin surplus at any point within this process. You guys are going to have to tell me whether or not you guys want to use a certified appraiser, which is in the best interest of the county for certain parcels. And I did ask the attorney's advisement on this, and he did say that going with a certified appraisal would be under state statutes. Again, the only reason we should be using fair market value is if a property is worth $100. I know it does cost money, however, I'd rather have it be liable to state statutes.
Yeah, can you do that? Can you use a certified, I mean, if there's a property that's worth value, right? But some of this stuff, if it's less than $1,000, I mean.
That is your discretion, that's not.
Well, you know, I'm not just saying, we can do both, right? That's the question, not for you to decide that.
That's not for me to decide.
Yeah,
That's
but
something that
we
you-
have the ability to do both, where we don't have to get an appraiser to come out and look at it for $100.
Correct, yes. Have to kind of weigh those
Yep, yep.
options. But if you have like, you know, if you have a $75,000 house or over that, I mean, or even 20,000, yeah, I probably wouldn't.
Anything that, yeah, that would have some value.
We also need to determine whether or not, I did talk to the county clerk about this. Now we do have the option to put it on MLS, set it the Observer, and advertise it that way. However, that is up to how you guys choose to decide that. But we do have to put it on the website regardless. It's just either, so it's either the MLS or the Observer for advertising for these particular. We always have to put it on the website. I also would need to know what you guys actually want to put on the website so I can get a template going in terms of what content you actually want to appear within that website, on our website. And then as far as sale options, with if you close or open, or would be a licensed broker. And some, those are usually executive finance or public works, again, fair market value or certified appraiser. What would be placed in the website, and then again, how would you like me to handle brownfields? So brownfields are contaminated properties that we do have. We do have about 5 that I can tell already. These are always written off every single year. So you're at about $1,000 every single year. A lot of these properties are, you know, they've been written off since the 80s. So, you know, some of them people already think we have. There is options. I've had people interested in them. The other one is that we have, you know, the Weber's dry cleaning. That is one of them. And you're sitting with $27,000 in back taxes. So, I mean, sometimes the nice thing is that, you know, you can work with different entities to be able to come up with different remediation parts of that. But again, all that takes time. There's so many grants that we can be able to use for these certain things, but you have to have time. You have to have people that are dedicated to do that.
So that's my next question. There's a resource that we don't have.
Correct. I'm only one person.
Exactly. And that's part of the reason why I want to bring this up. Yes, it's a problem. But when you don't have the resource to it, I mean, does the problem equal resource? That's the question.
Resource
right?
needed.
The resource needed. So can we afford the resource to recoup the property? That's what we need. At the end of the day, that's really what you need to know.
Right.
Because that's what costs.
Right, and it compounds because these properties, there's several in the city that have back taxes. Owners are deceased and have been deceased for years. And so from a city perspective, it's very frustrating because there's nothing we can do, but then we're having to mow their lawns or pay for their lawns to be mowed. We're getting calls constantly about these properties. And so then what happens? So if we maintain those properties, then it's a special assessment that goes on the taxes and the county's making us whole. And so as a taxpayer, a county taxpayer, I hate that, right? Because now the county taxpayers are paying for this person that's not paying taxes and isn't taking care of their lawn. And so it's a real operational issue for us because we don't have the staff or the resources to be mowing all of these lawns and then putting it on the taxes knowing that, well, it's not going to get paid anyway. And it's only us pooling into the same system to pay it. So it is from a city standpoint, a high priority that whatever the county can do to address these properties and get them taken care of. And we get a lot of folks come in that want to purchase these properties. And there's nothing we can do to help them with that.
I get one every week. Every week. There's someone coming in every single week. So actually I had like 2 this week.
So Ashley and I did talk about when she develops her budget for 2027 to build in a part-time person in her office so they can help with the front counter. And she has the ability to lock herself into an office and work on these. And then we can set a goal in 2027 to try to get as many of these off the books as we can.
You know, the nice thing that like we have is that, you know, the county board at some point had $3,000 put into the budget automatically for this that continue to roll over. So there are funds here to be able to use for certain things, just not staff. And that's really the thing that I find it really hard because a lot of these things take time and it takes coordination. It takes a lot of time to do. I just don't have time to do all of that amongst all the other statutory things that I have.
So one thing, just so you're aware, is that we've been, from a city standpoint, and I'm talking from the public works director hat now, we've been deferring these things, trying to push them off. And just today, as a matter of fact, we determined that we can no longer do that, and we now have to hire mowing services to be done. So we got quotes, probably gonna cost us a couple hundred to get each 3 that we know the person is deceased. A couple $100 for the first mow, and then $75 every mow after that. So by the time we go to taxes here, we will be issuing, you know, what's it called, the special assessment for it for several $1,000s. And again, as a partner with the county, we don't want to do that to county taxpayers. but we don't have any choice because of the pressure we take and the dilapidation, the blight that it creates and all of the other property values around it. So this will be the first time that we're really going to have to check in on the special assessment, which means that it'll force the county to make the city whole.
And it was the previous treasurer who actually, I don't know if I'd say pleaded, but strongly encouraged us not to exercise the special assessments for that because of the impact on the county. And so that's to Jason's point, we've done everything we can to not do that, but now we have to.
The other thing is that when properties get to a certain state, right now we're looking at nuisance and blight conditions. You know that we recently tore out a structure in the city here that is still on the tax roll, the property is. And I don't know that we did it. I think the city may have incurred the entire cost itself, just budgeted for it, but by right, again, that should be special assessment. So we just had a $20,000 bill that should be special assessed. It's going to be special assessed for a structure that didn't get dealt with for so long. Now it's a $20,000 bill that we have to send to the county. So
See, and this is the point, that what is the cost, right? So now you're starting to see what the cost is. So then you look at labor much differently when you look at a cost. Now, if this is gonna continue to compound, I'm one that never wants to add headcount. I'll be the first to tell you, I live in a business that we do not add headcount because headcount is expensive, extremely expensive. But when you're losing money, then it doesn't, then you have to make a decision, right? And this is why I really wanted this here, was everybody needs to be aware that sometimes you have to do things to make things better, right? Sometimes we've kicked this can down the road. So I've been on for 8 years and we did a little bit of this a few different times. And that's all we've ever done.
September of 23 was the last, right?
Something like that.
Almost 3 years since we've taken a break.
And I bet we haven't done 10 of them since I've been on board. Can you define special assessment?
It's a special charge that we're allowed to put on your property tax bill. So that could be if you didn't pay your utility bill, you have a delinquent utility bill, we can put that as a special charge on your tax bill. Or even it could be something like, exactly, yeah, so various things, but it's limited.
It would seem that planning for 2027 is wise. In the meantime, should we start working on that ordinance immediately?
Yes, I've already started that. So I'll be hopefully putting that in, not on August, in September. So I'm in the middle of drafting that for the attorney to review, and so hopefully that'll be there. I already have a couple of different things on sex and finance. But again, we also have 11-year write-off. We have to statutorily write things off for taxes by 11 years. And so if it doesn't go to tax, we have no choice, we have to bring it. And right now I'm at $2,000. And again, that may not mean anything, but they continue to add up every single year. Some of these properties, especially the contaminated ones, are hundreds of thousands of dollars written off over like the last couple decades. So there's like PFAS, there is different like tanks underneath, if there's a spill, like a hazardous spill, things like that. So it kind of all varies, but there's different things that can determine it. And so like old cheese factories, because of the chemicals and tanks that we used to use, especially in the laundries, they usually always are under the brown field, are always considered to be contaminated.
Mark, sir, can I add one more thing? So to Ashley's point, because it's an economic development factor, and again, I worked on this with the county too, when I was the county economic development, we had created a partnership between the city and the county where any property inside the city would be considered collaboratively for maximizing the economic impact to the county and to the city. So it sounds like things have changed, so I can't comment on that, but for example, 460 West Spruce Street was the property that the county took. That was when Clint Langbrecht was here. The county did have to write off the back taxes, but the city agreed to tear the house out. And we do have several $100,000 brand new property there. It's having trouble selling, so it is hard, but we have a brand new property there. We also took, Jefferson Street, 460 West Jefferson Street. Yeah, Dave was part of that, as aware. That's house sat in the community for 10 years, 15 years, blighted. We finally collaborated with the county. Again, they took it, transferred to the city for $1. City tore it out. And we attempted a development agreement, like, if we transfer this land to you, you must build on it. So we're currently under contract, but again, there's some difficulty because of the housing market. But there may be things, what I would hope for is a partnership between the county and the city to review any property taken in the city, to say, how can we work together to minimize the pain and to maximize the economic opportunity that exists, while obviously still giving consideration to the plight of the individual that may have been the property owner. But we have worked on this together, and I would hope that we can continue.
So the only thing with that is that we can't have preferential treatment when it goes to the first auction. It has to be sold for an appraised value for state statutes. So there can't be any agreements on that one. If it goes to a second auction, then yes, but you guys would all have to work that out. But in terms of the first auction, we can't have preferential treatment to any of the neighbors and any municipalities. It's changed.
Oh, they did
Right.
change it?
They did.
Okay.
On the second one, but on the first one, because it has to be firm, it has to be appraised to be able to give just proceeds to the owners. And that really is kind of changed a whole bunch of different things. And that's why now we have to get a certified appraiser. We have to hold the proceeds. We have to do just we have to do all of these things because those proceeds are supposed to go back to the previous owners.
So the municipality was recently reevaluated, which most have.
Correct.
Then your fair market value listed on the tax bill is it's gonna be pretty accurate. So that seems like that would be an area where if you know that there was a reval done in that year, the year prior, and you're real close to one, that you wouldn't have to get it could be a decision where an appraisal could be.
So it's not, from my understanding and talking to the attorney and Andy Phillips, it's not in our best legal standpoint to not get a certified appraiser because of the state statutes and the way that they say it. In our best interest, we really need to do the certified appraiser. The only option to do fair market value based on the last tax bill, again, and if it's a very low property that we're selling it for. But if it's if it has value, we have to sell it because by state statutes, we have to. That's changed a lot. And that's the thing, this is changing all the time. So if we aren't keeping up with it, we could possibly do something that is against state statutes.
Do you know, Ashley, if they prohibit any type of contractual agreement contingent that's based on the sale? So in other words, a lot of times what you'll have is people watching for sheriff's auctions, right? So they swoop in and they buy a distressed property, and what do? They leave it a distressed property, which is bad for the whole community and all neighbors. Do you know if they prohibited any type of agreement associated with the initial auction?
Not that I'm aware of, but within the bid sheet that Attorney Russell did do, they have to fill out a form to do that. But again, we don't have any contractual agreement besides just, giving them, filling out, some information in the bid agreement, but no.
So the point there is that we may still be possibly, right? It's all gotta be checked with legal, but you may be still possible to auction the property with the contingency that you must do X amount of remodeling in order to validate or confirm the sale as a contingency of the sale.
I don't believe you would be able to contractually agree that with the actual sale. Not within, because it's a sealed bid. It's not an agreement.
What would be listed as part of the bid document? You're bidding on this property with these criteria.
Correct, and that's what they would have, but would be able to enforce it if they didn't do it.
All right. Anything else? Yes, Richard.
I know a while back, we took possession of the property down by Peaches. And we bid that out, but part of that bidding process was they had to remove the motel. within 2 years.
That was the guidelines, and I think we can do that.
It's changed since then.
But it's changed since then too, so maybe we can't do that anymore, which maybe.
But I don't know.
I don't know.
I know in the second auction, there's a little bit more leeway, especially with the intergovernmental contract. With that second auction, there's more leeway with that. Like the city can bid on the first auction, and if the executive finance chooses to take that bid, then, you know, that's not up to any of us here. So, but they would still have to bid, you know, and pay that particular price just as along with the other bids. But there, in that second auction, you can do intergovernmental projects where you can use certain grants and things like that. But it would have to be that second auction, not that first auction. So because we have to prove that we are getting just compensation to the previous owners.
But I think you said earlier that they could fill out something that justifies their decision for accepting the bid. So for example, if the city bid $1 and fair market value was $75,000, but the county said, we want to take the city's bid, which is the lowest, not the highest, and not fair market value. But based on this criteria, we're going to justify our decision. That could be possible.
So the Public Works Committee sets a minimum bid and a high bid.
By law or by choice?
By law. So like the Public Works, if it is under what the Public Works has set at executive finance, the executive finance have to reject it. They can only use what Public Works sets.
So that's your county ordinance, not
Right,
state
that's what it
statute.
sounds like.
Yes and no, like there's two different things. Like we have our county ordinance that also like gears toward the state statutes as well. So they kind of work in tandem as far as like who decides what is more of a county ordinance. And then as far as like as far as like how it's set, that's more the state statutes. So like you can fill out the sealed bid and then it would go to executive and finance and they would read those sealed bids and determine that. But they can't determine they're gonna sell it for $1 if it's under what Public Works set. If it is, they're gonna reject it, and if there's any other bids, then it'll go back to Public Works to decide a lower value. So the price keeps getting lower, but we have to start at what is just compensation for the actual taxpayer. It can go on many different rounds and go down, but we have to be able to start at the highest possible because that is what the state now calls just compensation for the taxpayer. That's why a lot of these things have changed and they're constantly moving.
Yeah,
So-
because they're protecting the taxpayer, whether they paid their taxes or not.
Correct.
So they're trying to make sure they get the most money they can get out of the property. I get that. That's what we didn't necessarily have that before, but a lot of the ones we did before were in the second, third time around. We're just trying to clear it out, right? That's where we got. Yes.
There's a recent court ruling too that was attempting to make the property owner whole on the county paid the difference. So if it, and that was over, it didn't go through, so.
Good.
So they, like, in that particular case, instead of just paying the difference, we would be paying what is actually fair market value or what the actual certified appraiser would be. So thank God it didn't, because it would then be out of, like, we would have to pay that difference.
Okay. Any more comments, questions? Everybody wants to go? No, okay, so just one more thing I'm gonna say about that. The reason why I bring this up, and this goes to the other thing, we continue to raise taxes, right? We raise taxes for this, we raise taxes for that, we raise taxes for this. We got 1.5 million in non-paid taxes this year.
And unpaid taxes for 2025 is $622,370.15. Grand total of unpaid and postponed delinquent taxes are $1.1 $1,162,094.12.
Okay, so when we talk about we're gonna build this, and we're gonna buy this, we're gonna sell this, and we're gonna do all that, remember that number. Because that number, as we continue to raise taxes in an area that isn't growing, I'm guessing that number's gonna grow too. just to be conscious, so. That's another reason why I wanted this here. Because we do a lot of things on this county board, because this is the right thing to do, and this is the right thing to do, and this is the right thing to do. Well, at some point, we're gonna have to get better. That's what I would say. That's my only thing. Thank you very much for that lengthy explanation.
And again, like Attorney Russell had to leave at 7, so if you have more questions, you want to reach out to us.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Future agenda items, anything? Public Works, no? All right, correspondence? Nothing? When's our next meeting? We skipped one. When's our next meeting? Next week? Or we skipping?
We can skip it. I got nothing.
It's on my calendar. It comes on my phone. That's why I saw. Next month would be as soon as we'd have another meeting. Okay, so we'll set that at a future time. All right, the motion adjourned. Shirley? Richard? All in favor, signify by saying aye. I'm sorry for the lengthy meeting.
Let's talk the longest public works meeting.
It is the absolute longest public works